After buying our first home, my husband's father moved in without asking, saying, "I'll stay as long as I want." When I confronted my husband, he shrugged, "It's temporary." Instead of arguing, I made a quiet call. The next morning, he opened the door and froze when he saw who was waiting with legal documents. Buying a house was supposed to be the happiest moment of our lives. My husband, Jake, and I had worked our butts off for years to make it happen. We weren't rich, we weren't handed anything, just two people grinding through long hours, saving every extra dollar, making sacrifices, and praying nothing would go wrong before we finally got the keys. And then it happened. We closed on a modest 3-bedroom home in Austin, Texas. It was perfect. Big enough to grow into, small enough to feel cozy. We had a backyard for our dog, Rocco, a spare room for guests, and most importantly, privacy. No landlords, no upstairs neighbors stomping around, no one telling us what to do. It was ours. For exactly 1 week. Because that's when my father-in-law, Roy, showed up at our door with a suitcase. It was a Friday night. I remember because Jake and I had finally finished unpacking the last of the moving boxes, and we were sitting on the couch, exhausted but proud of ourselves. I had a glass of wine, he had a beer, and we were about to start our first movie night in our new home. Then the doorbell rang. I frowned. We hadn't invited anyone over. I got up, peeked out the window, and my stomach immediately dropped. "Roy." I opened the door, and there he was, suitcase in hand, grinning like he had just won the lottery. "Hey, kiddo," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Figured I'd come check out the new place." Sure." I stepped aside, but something felt off. His suitcase was a dead giveaway. Jake stood up, looking just as confused. "Dad, what's up?" Roy clapped him on the back, walked straight past us and down the hallway. "Looks nice," he said, opening doors like he was inspecting a hotel suite. This'll do." He walked into our guest room and plopped his suitcase on the bed. I blinked. Did this man just move in? I turned to Jake, expecting him to say something, anything. Jake sighed, rubbing his face. "Dad, how long are you staying?" Roy stretched, kicked off his shoes, and smirked. "As long as I want." I laughed, because surely this was a joke. But Roy didn't laugh. And neither did Jake. The first few days were tolerable. Annoying, but manageable. Roy acted like he was on vacation. He took long showers, left the bathroom soaking wet, never refilled the toilet paper, and somehow managed to use every single dish in the kitchen without washing a single one. But then days turned into weeks. I came home from work one day, tired, craving nothing but a hot shower and some peace. Instead, I opened the door and walked into loud country music blasting through our speakers. Roy was on the couch, drinking a beer, our beer, feet up on the coffee table, watching some fishing show like he owned the place. "Oh, hey," he said, barely looking over. "Could you grab me another one from the fridge?" I stood there stunned. I looked at Jake, who was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending like this wasn't happening. He shot me a warning glance. "Don't start." I turned around, walked into our bedroom, and locked the door. It only got worse. Roy ate our food without replacing it. He never offered to pitch in for groceries or bills. He started inviting his friends over. He took over the TV. He would be up all night, slamming cabinets, making snacks, talking loudly on the phone. One morning, I went into the kitchen to find a mountain of dirty dishes in the sink. Crumbs all over the counter. An empty orange juice container in the fridge. I walked into the living room. "Hey, Roy, can you clean up after yourself?" He looked at me like I had 3 heads. "Oh, don't worry about that, sweetheart," he said with a grin. "You'll get to it." I saw red. I turned to Jake. He was already looking away. "Jake." My voice was sharp. He sighed. "It's temporary." That was the moment I knew. Jake wasn't going to do anything. So I did. Instead of arguing, I grabbed my phone and walked outside. I made one quiet phone call. "Hey, Lisa," I said to our realtor. "Quick question. How much of a legal right does a guest have if they refuse to leave?" She chuckled. "None, unless they're on the lease or have a rental agreement." Bingo. I explained everything, how Roy had moved in without asking, how Jake was just letting it happen, and how I was done. Lisa didn't even hesitate. "You need an official trespassing notice. Since he's not on the lease, you can legally have him removed." I had to bite my lip to keep from cackling. Lisa gave me the number of a real estate lawyer and a local officer who handled cases like this all the time. She told me exactly what to say, how to file, and most importantly, how to serve the notice. I thanked her. Then I went back inside and made one more call. The next morning, I made sure to be up early. By 8 a.m., there was a knock at the door. Roy, still in his robe, shuffled over and yanked it open. There stood a police officer. "Morning, sir," the officer said, holding up a document. We received a report that you're unlawfully occupying this residence. Roy frowned. What? No, my son owns this place. I can stay as long as the officer cut him off. That's not how it works. You have 48 hours to vacate, or you'll be removed for trespassing. Silence. Roy turned bright red. Then, slowly, he turned to me. You called the cops on me? His voice was quiet, low. I smiled. It's temporary. Roy didn't move right away. He stood frozen in the doorway, gripping the eviction notice like it was some kind of personal betrayal. His face twisted into something ugly. Anger, disbelief, a hint of amusement, like he thought this was all some kind of joke. Then, he did exactly what I expected. He turned to Jake. Son, you're just gonna let this happen? His voice was low, dangerous. Jake looked like a deer caught in headlights. His mouth opened, closed, and then he turned to me. Babe, maybe we should talk about this. Talk. About this. My jaw clenched. What is there to talk about, Jake? Dad didn't mean any harm, he said quickly. We don't have to call the cops on family. I mean, he has nowhere to go. Roy perked up. Yeah, exactly. Where am I supposed to go, huh? Out on the street. The officer sighed. Sir, I suggest you start packing. Roy scoffed, shaking his head. This is insane. You're my son, and you're letting her treat me like some criminal. Jake ran a hand through his hair. Dad, maybe you could stay with Uncle Mike. Oh, so now I'm getting shipped off like some stray dog? Roy's voice got louder. He turned back to me, grinning like he knew something I didn't. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. You know, Jake, I still own your old car, right? Silence. My head snapped to Jake. He looked guilty. What? I said, voice sharp. Jake cleared his throat. It's nothing. Just. I sold Dad my old car when I got the new one. But Roy laughed. Oh, no. Don't downplay it, son. I paid $1 for that car. He turned to me, smug. Because technically, that makes me the legal owner. The officer shifted, looking very interested now. So here's what I'm thinking, Roy continued, grinning wide. Since I have nowhere to go, maybe I just live in my car. Right in your driveway. My stomach turned to ice. No, absolutely not. Jake scratched the back of his head, looking between us. Well, technically, that's legal. I nearly lost it. You're telling me you're okay with your dad camping out in our driveway just because of some loophole? I snapped. Roy smirked. Loophole's a loophole, sweetheart. I wanted to strangle him. The officer sighed. If his vehicle is registered to him, he does have the right to park it in public spaces, including this driveway, unless the homeowners association has a rule against it. Roy grinned wider. Don't think you have an HOA, do you? I had to physically stop myself from throwing something. This wasn't over. Not even close. Roy didn't leave that day. Or the next. Instead, he packed his suitcase, loaded it into the old car, and parked himself right in our driveway. It was hell. He would blast his car radio at night. He would leave trash all over the yard. One morning, I went outside and found a pile of beer cans stacked neatly next to my flower bed. Jake kept saying, it's temporary. But I was done waiting. I started making another quiet call. If Roy wanted to play dirty, I would play dirtier. I started digging into city codes, property laws, anything that could get him out of my life. And then I found it. A local ordinance that made it illegal to sleep overnight in a parked vehicle for more than 48 hours. I had exactly what I needed. I made one more call. And this time, when the knock came at the door, it wasn't just an officer. It was a tow truck. Roy stepped out of his car, stretching like he had just woken from a nap. When he saw the tow truck, his smug expression vanished. Whoa, what the hell is this? The officer from before, Hernandez, handed him a paper. You've been warned. You're in violation of city code. This vehicle is being removed. Roy's face turned red. He spun to Jake. Do something. Jake looked between us, then at the officer, then back at his dad. For the first time, he looked truly stuck. Roy waited. Jake opened his mouth. And then, he made his choice. Jake's mouth opened, then closed. His jaw clenched as if he was waging an internal war with himself. Roy stood there, his face twisted in anger, waiting, expecting his son to take his side. For a second, I thought Jake was going to fight me on this. Then, finally, he exhaled and turned to the officer. It's her house, too. My stomach flipped. Roy's face twisted in betrayal. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, he hissed. You're choosing her over me? I'm your father. Jake rubbed his face, looking exhausted. Dad, I can't keep doing this. You ungrateful little, Roy started, but the officer cut him off. Sir, you need to step away from the vehicle. Roy lost it. No, this is my CR. You can't take my damn car. He turned on me, rage in his eyes. You think you've won, huh? You think you can just throw me out like some piece of trash? The officer stepped between us. Sir, back up. The tow truck driver started hooking the car up. Roy tried to grab him. Big mistake. Within seconds, Officer Hernandez had him pinned against the hood of the car. Jake took a step forward, panicked. Dad, stop. Roy was yelling. I was shaking. And then, just like that, handcuffs clicked. Silence. Roy froze. The officer leaned down. You just earned yourself a trespassing charge. Jake ran a hand through his hair, looking like he was about to be sick. Roy turned his head, locking eyes with me. This ain't over, he said, voice low, venomous. A chill ran down my spine. After 3 months of hell, Roy was gone. Jake and I barely spoke for the next few days. He was quiet, moody, lost in his own thoughts. I knew he felt guilty. Maybe he thought I had taken things too far. Maybe he was mourning the idea of his father, rather than the reality of who Roy really was. I gave him space. I wasn't going to apologize. For the first time in months, I could breathe in my own home. I could sit on my couch without finding someone else's dirty socks shoved under the cushions. I could open the fridge without seeing food I bought completely gone. And just when I started to think it was finally over, it wasn't. Because 2 weeks later, Roy came back. It was a Wednesday night. Jake and I were having dinner, actually sitting down together for the first time since everything had gone down, when I heard it. A scraping noise. It was coming from outside. Jake and I locked eyes. I stood up slowly, my stomach tight. I walked to the front door, peered through the window, and nearly screamed. Roy. He was back. And he was spray painting our garage door. I yanked the door open. What the hell are you doing? Roy turned, grinning like a lunatic. Oh, hey there, sweetheart. I looked past him, my blood running cold. The garage door was covered in huge, black, sloppy letters, homewrecker. Jake rushed outside. Dad, what the hell? Roy laughed. You cost me everything, he spat, shaking the can of spray paint like it was a weapon. You humiliated me, got me arrested, took my goddamn car. Jake stepped forward, stunned. You got yourself arrested, Dad. You did this to yourself. Roy pointed at me, his hand shaking. No, she did this. She turned you against me. I felt something inside me snap. I stepped forward. No, Roy. You did that all by yourself. His face twisted into something ugly. You think this is over? You think you can just get rid of me? I took out my phone. I'm calling the police. His grin vanished. I expected him to get angry again, maybe throw the can of spray paint. Instead, he smirked. Then he pulled out his phone, too, and dialed a number. And the second I heard the ringtone from inside the house, I knew something was very, very wrong. Jake's phone was ringing. Jake looked down. His face paled. He knew who was calling. Roy's smirk widened. Jake answered, hesitated. Hello? A voice came through the line. I couldn't hear the words, but I could hear the panic in Jake's voice when he said, What? No. No, that's not possible. My stomach clenched. Jake slowly looked up at me, and the look in his eyes scared me. What is it? I asked. He swallowed hard. That was the bank. I blinked. The bank? Jake looked sick. They just said we're past due on the mortgage. I felt the air leave my lungs. What? Roy laughed. Oh, don't look so shocked, he said. I told you. This isn't over. Jake stood there, staring at his phone, his face drained of color. His hands shook slightly as he processed what the bank had just told him. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Past due on the mortgage? That's not possible, I said, my voice then unsteady. We've been making payments. Jake swallowed hard, his fingers twitching. I don't know. Roy grinned. Oh, I know, he said, rocking back on his heels like he didn't have a care in the world. It's real simple, sweetheart. You never changed the automatic withdrawal account. The words hit like a freight train. I froze. No, there's no way. Jake and I had set up our mortgage payments months ago. We had double-checked everything. The money was supposed to come straight from our joint account, unless, I turned slowly to Jake. Tell me you didn't. Jake's lips parted. My stomach plummeted. Jake had never switched the account, which meant the payments had still been coming from his old bank account. The one that, months ago, had been connected to his father. And Roy had emptied it. He drained our mortgage payments. And Jake never noticed. I whipped my head back to Roy. You stole from us. Roy didn't even blink. I took back what's mine. I felt something in my chest crack wide open. Jake grabbed Roy by the shirt, something he never would have done before. What the hell is wrong with you? Jake roared. You could have cost us our house. Roy snorted. Oh, come on. Don't be so dramatic. You've got, what? 30 days before foreclosure. He shrugged, completely unfazed. Plenty of time. Jake was shaking. I had never seen him like this before. You are a monster, Jake whispered. I kept making excuses for you. I kept thinking you were just lost, just struggling, but you're a goddamn leech. Roy's expression darkened. Watch it, boy. Jake's nostrils flared. Or what? You gonna hit me like you used to? Silence. The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. I turned to Jake, my stomach dropping. What? Roy's jaw clenched. Don't start that, he muttered. Jake let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Why not? You used to smack me upside the head every time I did something you didn't like. Didn't matter if I was 6 or 16. I felt sick. Jake had never told me that. Not once. Roy glared. That was called discipline. Jake's laugh turned cold. No, it was called control. And you're still trying to pull the same crap now. Roy stepped forward, chest puffed up. You watch your damn mouth, boy. I am your father. Jake squared his shoulders. Not anymore. The words came out flat. Final. And for the first time since I had met him, Roy looked shaken. Roy looked between us, the first hints of realization creeping into his expression. He had pushed too far. You don't mean that, he said, voice lower now, almost desperate. Jake's face was stone. I do. I stepped beside him, my voice like ice. You have 2 choices, Roy. Either you leave right now, or I call the police. Again. Roy turned to me, his rage burning through his smug mask. This is all because of you, he spat. You're the reason my son is turning against me. You poisoned him against his own blood. I stepped forward, meeting his glare head-on. No, Roy. You did that all by yourself. He stood there, breathing heavily, his fists clenched. Jake exhaled, then did something I never expected. He took off his wedding ring. My heart stopped. Jake looked at me, his face twisted in something I couldn't quite read. And then, he turned to Roy. He held out the ring. If you ever get your life together, Jake said, voice thick, I'll think about forgiving you. He let the ring sit there in his palm, an unspoken offer. But if you don't, you're dead to me. Roy's breathing hitched. For the first time. The very first time I saw fear in his eyes. A different kind of fear. Not the fear of losing a house. Not the fear of being broke. The fear of being truly alone. He didn't take the ring. After a long, painful moment, he turned and walked away. The garage door still had Homewrecker scrawled across it in black paint. The smell of spray paint was sharp in the air, stinging my nose. Jake and I stood in silence. Finally, I whispered, what now? Jake turned to me. He looked wrecked. He hesitated. Then, finally, he put his ring back on. We fixed this, he said. Together. I let out a shaky breath, then nodded. Roy never came back. Jake and I fixed the mortgage issue. It took everything in our savings, but we saved the house. The garage door was repainted. The locks were changed. The security cameras went up. And the peace that followed? Worth every second.